which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Yvonne, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember D'Amico is absent tonight. Councilmember Horvath.
Here.
Councilmember Meister.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Duran.
Here.
Mayor Heilman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes from staff?
No.
Okay. Any changes that council wants to make?
I have a few suggestions. How about placing 4A, approving the addendum number 1 to RFP for banking services on consent? And I'd like to pull 2R from consent for excluded consent, please.
Okay, so 2R is pulled. Any objection to putting 4A on consent?
No.
Okay. Any other proposed changes? Could we put 5A on consent?
I was going to suggest that.
I'm comfortable with that.
It's the agreement for services with Harris and Associates.
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
Okay, so 4A and 5A will go to consent.
Mayor, how about 6A, which is the clarification on the rent stabilization ordinance amendment?
I need to leave it on because I need to further clarify something.
Okay, so we're going to leave 6A on the regular agenda. Are there other changes that people wish to make?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, I would like to note my no vote on 2G. Okay, any other changes? There's a motion to approve the agenda as it's been amended. If everyone could please vote. And our agenda is approved. Thank you, everyone. And now we will turn to adjournment motions. Are there adjournment motions tonight? John? Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to adjourn in memory of Chow Au, who's the great-grandmother of Daniel Hang, a member of our Disabilities Advisory Board, and is as our tradition in the city to adjourn our council meetings in honor of the military service personnel who were killed in service to our country. I'd like to remember Specialist Gabriel D. Condi, age 22.
Lauren? John?
Yes, Mayor, I have 2 adjournment requests tonight. One is that we adjourn in memory of Ron Thomas. Ron was the husband of attorney Phil Hoskins. Both of them, I actually married the 2 of them to one another. As we all know, Phil passed away earlier this past year, and I believe Ron died of a broken heart, sadly. And so we'll ask that we adjourn in memory of Ron Thomas of Huntley Drive. Additionally, I'd like to ask us to adjourn in memory of Terry Grand. Terry was a friend, I think a friend to many around the greater West Hollywood community, one of the surviving members of ACT UP Los Angeles, and a very dear friend. Memorial is pending for Terry. Thank you.
Great. And I'd request that we adjourn in memory of Genevieve Sotelo, mother of our longtime city employee, Yvette Sotelo. She passed away over this weekend. She is survived by her children, Yvette and Lenita Masters, her grandchildren, Dominique and Samantha Masters, her sisters, Rosemary and Yvonne Serrano, her son-in-law, Sam Masters, and her daughter-in-law, Sue Sexton, who many of us know here in the city. So I would request that we adjourn in her memory. Okay, without objection, we will now move on to presentations. I believe we only have one presentation tonight, and I don't know, is Melanie Luby here? Melanie, you are here. Hey, Melanie has been very active with an organization called ImprovingBirth.org, and she is also the organizer of the March for Moms rally that was held recently. We know that there is a big gap between routine, traditional practice and what current science dictates is best for mothers and babies. Despite spending a lot of money on maternity care, the U.S. has the highest maternal death and injury rate in the developed world. and 36% of women surveyed describe giving birth as a traumatic experience. Improving Birth Organization's mission is to bring evidence-based care and humanity to childbirth, ensuring that women have the right and the means to make educated decisions about their own safety and the safety of their children. And the whole purpose of this is to bring evidence-based care to the process of childbirth. Yesterday, thousands of men, women, and children in over 160 cities gathered for the March for Moms rally to improve birth. And Melanie has been an active part of that, and of course, a member of our Women's Advisory Board on top of it. So on behalf of the council, we want to thank you for your incredible work, and we want to recognize the work of improvingbirth.org. So if you can please come forward, and my colleagues like to join me as well.
Stand up here with me. I have things to say. Excuse me. So today also marks the beginning of the first ever National Maternal Health Awareness Week. And yesterday, as Mayor Heilman said, over 250 community members in Los Angeles rallied for maternal health care in Pershing Square. We rallied to raise our voices, to shine a light on the tragedy that is the maternal care in our country. We rallied because despite spending more money on maternity care than any other country in the developed world, we have the greatest risk of dying due to pregnancy-related conditions. We rallied because the women of color are 3 to 4 times more likely to die than white women. We rallied because 31% of women in LA report experiencing feelings of depression or anxiety before, after, or during childbirth. We rally because the United States is the only high-income country and one of only 8 countries in the world that does not mandate paid family leave for mothers and newborns. Excuse me, we shift. And it's been said before that where West Hollywood leads, other cities follow. Excuse me, Loretta. And so thank you, council members and Mayor Heilman, for publicly acknowledging the work that organizations like Improving Birth and March for Moms are doing to change the statistics. And thank you for always being a leader, for advocating for the rights of people in our community, and specifically for the rights of birthing families. We are grateful for your support and acknowledgement, and I remain most proud to call this city my home. So thank you, guys. Bye-bye, Loretta. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your work. All right, that brings us to public comment. And Yvonne? Oh, we have some speakers. So we have some speakers on items that have not been pulled from consent. The first one is Sheila Kadisha on 2.0, and then followed by Mark Lehman.
Good evening, council members. It's my first time speaking to you all. My name is Sheila Kadisha, and I'm a resident of West Hollywood West. I have had the pleasure of organizing National Night Out for West Hollywood West for the past 2 years, and I'm involved again this year. And every year I've said to your staff in the informational meetings, we need more funding. So I'm very glad you're considering it this year. Our stipend for West Hollywood West has been $500 each year, and each year we spend about $380 just on the rental of tables and chairs. Even though I believe we do a great job in reaching out to all our local businesses, and the local businesses do a great job in making donations to us, that leaves us with about $120 for drinks, paper products, supplemental food as we never have enough, and miscellaneous items. Therefore, our costs have been closer to about $1,000, and we've had to go into our bank account for the remainder. And unfortunately, most years we don't have much funds in our bank account and we get depleted. We love NNO, we love working hard to make it happen, but we would appreciate a little more help from the city in making our events more practical financially and likewise more successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mark, to be followed by Kevin Houlihan.
Mark Lehman, a resident of the city of West Hollywood. I'm here tonight on behalf of Reagan Silber and RWS Sunset, which are the owners of 9165 Sunset. That was item 2M on the consent calendar tonight. We're here primarily to thank the city for the support of the designation of this piece of property, especially John Mayer, the entire staff at the Planning Department, the Historic Preservation Commission, and a lot of the community members who've supported this. Reagan, this is really a labor of love, this project for my client Reagan. It's a beautiful gem of a piece of property, and his joy really is restoring it. He's just gotten started. We're glad with this tonight that the designation will be complete. We will be coming forward with some spectacular rehab plans for the site. We want to restore this property to its former glory. It's got a real glorious history, beautiful, phenomenal history. It's a gorgeous little gem of a building, and we're really happy that it's going to be here for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Kevin Houlihan, to be followed by Rick Watts.
Well, Rick and I actually live in the same building, so it's going to be similar. I've lived in the building since 1985, so I've been there a long time, and I've never had any noise troubles with the adjacent apartment. Never heard any noise from them at all until the current tenants moved in, and now there's a lot of noise, a lot of music being played, a lot of banging. Rick will fill you in on. He lives above them or below them. I live to one side of them, so we get kind of different noises, but it's become very stressful for both him and myself. I did call city code compliance about the noise one day. I called them during the day, and they said they'd send somebody out. And then I got a call 2 hours later saying that they made a mistake, and I'm supposed to call the sheriff's department during the day. And this actually goes against what's in your write-up on the website, WeHo website. So you should either correct the write-up, or even better, correct the procedures where you can call code compliance about noise during the day. I'm somewhat hesitant to call the police department, and more likely to call code compliance City Hall for these kind of problems.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Rick Watts, to be followed by Jack Allendorfer. John Allendorfer.
Rick Watts, City of West Hollywood. As all five of the members of the council know, the city attorney knows, the city manager know, over the building where Kevin and I both live, we've had an ongoing problem for 8 months now. Officers have had to come out to the property north of 24 times. There have been 5, 6, or 7 arrests that I'm aware of associated with individuals in the apartment in question. At least 4 car burglaries that I'm aware of, possibly a 5th one I discovered on my car. We got flooded last night, seemingly intentionally. This is the second time that this has happened. I want to read a section into the code. It says, this is California Penal Code 373A that states, every person occupying or leasing a property or premises of another who maintains, permits, or allows a public nuisance to exist thereon, after reasonable notice in writing from a health officer or city attorney or prosecuting attorney to remove, discontinue, or abate the same has been served upon such person, is guilty of a misdemeanor and shall be punished accordingly. Virtually every resident in our building signed this petition, which was delivered to the city back in November. Still no action on it. No referral to the district attorney. We want action. We've got people that are constantly coming into the property. We know what they're up to, and we want this to end. The cost to the taxpayers and to our poor landlord, who is a nice guy, I'm guessing is probably approaching $100,000 now, for lack of action. This needs to be taken care of, and you guys need to do what you're supposed to do. It was said to us that, oh, we're a tenant-friendly city. We've never gotten involved in evictions before. We're tenants too. One of the neighbors in the building immediately to the south of us, who has witnessed they've had hypodermic needles in their garage, witnessed people hopping into the fences to get into our property to go up to the unit in question. They have had to call the cops now, by their own estimates, 30 to 40 times. We're at wit's end. We depend on you to protect the law-abiding citizens.
Thank you. Your
Thank
time
you.
has expired. John Allendorfer, to be followed by Ali Shahidi.
Good evening, John Jack Ellendorfer, the City of West Hollywood. And good evening, Mayor Hellman and council members. This is Senior Month, so I just want to mention 4 great events for Senior Month. The first one is May 16th, next Wednesday, the Senior Health Fair. So come, it's going to be from 9 to 12, and one of the highlights will be mammogram screening for both women and men. So come find out. Cedar Sinai will be there to help you out with checkups. It's great. And the new project we have is Seniors in Action. This is where seniors are going to get together. We're going to get together upstairs in the community room, and we're going to talk about activities that provide engaging opportunities for participants to learn something new, contribute their talents and experience, and deepen their connection to the West Hollywood community. It's going to be community plus connection plus conversation, and it's very exciting to have some senior activity on the west side. So seniors, come on down. And then next we have 2 events on May 23rd. The first event is the Older Adult Transportation Pop-Up with LA Metro. LA Metro staff will be on hand to provide for older adults to learn more about using public transportation. They will have a presentation, and there will be a table for 2 hours. So again, seniors, come on down, find out how to get around. I think it's very valuable, especially for seniors, to know what to do. And then last, on that same day, at 2 o'clock, we have the Senior Advisory Board meeting and reception. It's going to be here in council chambers. So come on down. A couple of outstanding seniors will be recognized, and the senior stories, we hope, will be read. And also, we're very excited. There's a video project that we did with the teenagers and the youth of Plummer Park. We did a minor 60 minutes program. They interviewed us, and these are teenagers, some even in grade school, 6th grade. They interviewed the senior board advisory members. We exchanged conversation with them, but they did the interviewing, they did the camera work, they did the sound work, they did the storyboard, and they did the slating. So I was really excited that the seniors and the youth of Plummer Park were going to get together, and I want to do more intergenerational things.
Thank you.
We can learn from both. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ali Shahidi, to be followed by Amanda Goodwin.
Good evening. Good evening. I've been a resident of West Hollywood for 12 years. My daughter, who's 11 years old, was born here. Increasingly, I don't feel safe. The timing of this meeting is very appropriate. Last night at 11:30 p.m., I was woken up by very loud banging on the door and a guy shouting, "Open the door, open the door." I don't feel safe. I called the sheriff's station. It took them 15 minutes to get to my house. I live 1 mile away from the sheriff's station. This is a problem. I don't feel safe. There have been many reported instances of similar situations, and we need to do something about it. We need to increase the patrol. We need to do something. Do you feel safe walking at night in your own city? I'm asking you. I see Lauren all the time walking the streets, but do you feel safe walking at night at 11:30?
This is for your time to talk to us, not for us to respond.
I'm just trying to project how I felt last night for 15 minutes while the guy was banging on the door saying, "Open the door." And I told him, "I'm going to call the sheriff." And he said, "I don't care." Maybe he knew the sheriff will take 15 minutes to get there. By the time the sheriff was there, he was gone. I don't feel safe in my city. And something needs to be done. I see more parking enforcement officers roaming the streets at all hours and not enough real police patrol stations. Maybe they should paint those cars in black and white colors just to have an appearance.
Thank you.
I don't feel safe.
Your time is expired. I don't know if there's anyone here. John Leonard, are you in the back? There you are, John. So if you could follow up with Mr. Shahidi. Thank you. Amanda Goodwin to be followed by Michael King.
Well, good evening. It's been a while. It's funny that this gentleman just spoke, because I was actually at the Sheriff's Department today talking to Brian about crime in our city, because I had a conversation with John D'Amico on our street, because it's something I've also been concerned about over the last year, wondering if crime has risen, because I don't feel safe anymore coming home at 11 o'clock at night or 11:30 at night, walking in my neighborhood. I'm in a pretty central area because of just random things that have been happening. And I was assured by the Sheriff's Department today, or Brian, that crime has actually decreased in the last 7 years, but it is up since last month, and mostly burglaries of cars and stuff like that. As far as what we see as assaults or hard crime, sir, I know how you feel. I've been in those situations waiting for
Please address the council.
for the sheriffs to come, and they don't come right away. I don't know why. You have to scream bloody murder at times to get them there within 5 minutes, and I've lived in the city for almost 30 years, and I have a good relationship with the Sheriff's Department, and sometimes I'm perplexed as to why they don't come quickly. I'm not going to get to it, but basically, once again, I'm just really concerned with our homeless issue in our city and how we're addressing it. Homelessness has risen 23% in the last year in LA County, and we're feeling it, and it's also correlated with high rents. And we as a city, I know you've been trying to amend the Ellis Act, but what are we going to do to stop developers from taking rents off the market, that market affordable rents, in order to build things that only give us 10 units, 3 units a year of housing for people that need it. But
Thank you. Michael King to be followed by Karen Ayers.
Good evening. You know me as a member of the Business License Commission, but outside of my commitments to West Hollywood, I'm an executive officer at Beth Chaim Chadashim, the world's first LGBTQ synagogue. On June 3rd, we're going to be holding our annual Vision Awards, at which we celebrate and elevate visionary leaders who make the world a better place, in particular for LGBT individuals. This year, we're proud to honor West Hollywood's recently retired Director of Human Services and Rent Stabilization, Elizabeth Savage, with our Erwin and Agnes Herman Humanitarian Award. Elizabeth recently championed West Hollywood's Aging in Place initiative, which Council has made a priority for West Hollywood's future. and which won the 2017 American Planning Association Social Change and Diversity Award. Elizabeth also serves on the board of CASA, a 24-hour recovery, detox, and sober living program for women and their families, and actively volunteers for the City of Hope. The Hermans, for which this award was named, were bold leaders who championed our synagogue's admission to the Union of Reform Judaism in the early 1970s. They were progressive, forward-thinking people who believed that diversity and inclusiveness made every community a richer place. We're particularly excited that Abby Land, longtime council member of West Hollywood, will be introducing Elizabeth at this year's Vision Awards. And in addition to honoring Elizabeth, we're also humbled to be honoring Congressmember Karen Bass with our Harriet Pearl Tzedek Award for her efforts to champion truth, justice, and equality for all. We're so excited to have the support of many important public officials for our community. For those who'd like to participate in a tribute to Elizabeth, please contact me privately for more information. We're looking forward to a wonderful event, and I hope everyone will join us June 3rd at the Skirball Cultural Center for great food, music, and entertainment. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Ayers, to be followed by Eric John Schmidt.
Good evening, Mayor Howman, council members. So yesterday the city had its 12th annual Women's Leadership Conference, which was a great success. And I just want to thank the City Council for supporting this event year after year. It brings women from all over the city and all over the LA metro area and beyond to the city of West Hollywood to engage with one another, network, attend workshops, panel discussions on issues on the cutting edge of women's issues and things we care about. So thank you very much. And thank you, Mayor Howman and John Duran and Lindsay Horvath for attending. It means a lot to us. And we do have another event coming up. And I'm here with Mel Luby, my co-member of the Women's Advisory Board. And on Tuesday, May 15th, we're going to have a special event called From Riot Girls to Nasty Women. And it's going to be right here in City Council Chambers, 7 p.m. on May 15th, and we're going to have some of the founders of the Women's Advisory Board on hand to talk about what it was like to found the WAB. And Mayor Heilman, I'm sorry you'll be unable to attend that event because I know you had a lot to do with the creation of the Women's Advisory Board, but know that you're going to be there in spirit, a fiery spirit, and I invite the whole community to attend. It's to celebrate the Women's Advisory Board's 25th anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for yesterday's programs as well. Eric John Schmidt, to be followed by Steve Martin.
Good evening, Council. My name is Eric John Schmidt. I'm a resident of the East Side. I live at the Avalon. I believe that any current council member who has taken campaign donations from Ed Buck should either return the money or donate the amount given to a drug rehab organization. If they do not return the money before the nomination period in November, they should be considered unfit to serve office. It amounts to supporting meth use in West Hollywood. I will not let the death of Jamel Moore be forgotten. I will make sure it is a major election issue. Also, I think it is wrong to cancel a council meeting for something as trivial as a mayor rotation. The residents are entitled to a council meeting. City business is much more important than having a party at a bar. And finally, whether she wants it or not, I support Lauren Meister for City Council in 2019. She is not a lawyer. She seems to be in touch with the average resident, and she reminds me of my mom, even though I don't think you're old enough to be my mom. I know. And that's the naked truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Martin, to be followed by Wesley Bridle.
Steve Martin, West Hollywood. On behalf of the East Side Neighborhood Watch Association, I want to thank Lindsay Horvath for wandering around our neighborhoods. I guess it was last Monday. It was good that you were out there, and I'm sorry I missed it. We had another visitor last week coming through West Hollywood. I was walking down Santa Monica Boulevard, and it was sort of swarming with highway patrol and sheriffs. And then I noticed this motorcade coming down the street, and it just occurred to me that I'd heard on NPR that Mike Pence was coming from a fundraiser in Beverly Hills. So I was able to stand on the corner of Santa Monica and Stanley, even though there were sheriffs swarming all around, and give the vice president a double-barreled, single-digit salute on behalf of myself and other Democrats. And I think this was the first time that Vice President Pence has ever visited West Hollywood when he wasn't incognito. Also, tonight is going to be Mayor Heilman's last meeting presiding over the council. And, you know, I've been coming to city council meetings since 1984. I am probably the only person in this room who could tell you the natural color of John's hair.
Anymore.
Well, it was originally brown, then it was blue, and then after that it was hard to keep track. But, you know, John, I just want to thank you. I noticed 8 months ago that, you know, you've always chaired a good meeting, but I think you've really gone out of your way this year to chair these meetings with a certain sense of grace and inclusiveness. I think you've treated the public really well. Even though running one of these meetings is like herding cats, you've really treated the cats with a light touch, and I know how much you hate cats. But I really think that you've helped bring the council together and the community together. We've had a rough couple of years with the lawsuits with Ian Owens and Michelle Rax, and things could be worse. And I think you've helped really make that so that we're moving forward. And I just want to say I really appreciate it. And I have never seen meetings run so professionally and gracefully in my life. And I think it sets a high standard.
Thank you, thank you. Wesley Bridle, and that's our last speaker under public comment.
Wesley Bridle, West Hollywood. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Mayor. Speaking as a member of the West Hollywood Renters Alliance, we would like to thank you, thank the city for the new direction of the discussion around the seismic retrofitting we noticed online today. And we look forward to an open and honest conversation as we explore all creative options to deal with the threat that earthquakes pose to our population. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wesley. That completes public comment. Now, council member comments. Lauren? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with my attendance of the Southern California Association of Governments Regional Conference Thursday and Friday. The theme was Southern California at a Crossroads, where we discussed, you guessed it, transportation. I also met with Councilmember Koretz and his staff to discuss strategies for Poinsettia Park and the homeless issues and public safety concerns that both cities share. Also attended the West Side Urban Forum on how transit agencies and developers are responding to ridership trends. Regarding consent, item 2M, as in Mary or Meister, designation of Berman Kohner Building at 8165 Sunset. I'm really excited that it is going to be a local cultural resource. I'm very supportive of this designation, and I wish that more property owners with culturally relevant buildings would see the value in designation. Item 2O, the redesigned neighborhood watch and increasing the funding for the NNO event. I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember D'Amico, for co-sponsoring, and thank my colleagues for keeping it on consent. We really are in dire need of new signage that is more visible, larger text, less words, more direct, and as one of the speakers mentioned, the neighborhood watch groups have been trying very hard to stay within a very tight budget, and I think that there's been more engagement and more participation, so it's great that we're going to be able to double the amount that we're giving to each of the neighborhood watch groups on their National Night Out events. So I'm very excited about that. I wanted to thank my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Duran, for co-sponsoring the resolution in support of AB 2681 on seismic safety. And what that bill will do is, well, among other things, it will require the Office of Emergency Services to maintain a statewide database inventory of all potentially vulnerable buildings, and it will require the OES to identify funding mechanisms to offset costs to local departments and building owners. So that's a good thing. And then I just have an announcement, two announcements actually. They have four paws, but two announcements. The city is hosting 2 Dog Day afternoons in May at West Hollywood Park. We have Pawsapalooza Festival and Marketplace, where we celebrate all things canine. It's Paws LA, Pets Are Wonderful, Support Los Angeles. It's on Saturday, May 12th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at West Hollywood Park. This festive family-friendly event will include more than 40 exhibitors featuring pet-friendly products and services, as well as activities for kids and dogs, including carnival games, face painting, not for the dogs, balloon art, and more. And then the following Saturday, we have the Vanderpump Dog Foundation World Dog Day, which aims to draw attention to the amazing creatures that dogs are while raising awareness about global dog abuse. Started in 2016, the upcoming event will be held on Saturday, May 19th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And again, it aims to create a better world for dogs, both domestically and internationally. And if you need more information on either of these events, feel free to email our office or call. That's it for me.
Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to make everyone aware of our next gen event. Our first one was a great success, and I know people have been eagerly anticipating the next one. It's a program we initiated as a way to spark new ideas and engagement from our next generation of leadership here in West Hollywood. And our upcoming event will focus on the future of transportation, featuring panelists from Lyft, other experts working in the field of transportation, who are going to discuss West Hollywood and the region, and we'll look at technology and infrastructure as it continues to develop. The event is taking place on May 22nd at 6 p.m. at the chapel at the Abbey, and we hope you'll all join us. This week is Municipal Clerks Week, I am told, and I wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge our own city clerk, Yvonne Corker, who was recently nominated for City Clerk of the Year through the City Clerks Association of California. As our city clerk, yes! And as city clerk, you know she has flawlessly conducted several local elections, worked on increasing ethics and transparency in the election process, helped bring consistency and increased effectiveness of the commissions and advisory boards, and helped us get through our meetings smoothly or not so smoothly, as the case may be. And she's certainly an invaluable asset to our city council and our entire city. So I want to thank you for all that you do for our city, Yvonne. You're truly a tremendous asset to us. I wanted to, as Steve Martin mentioned, I did spend last Monday evening walking the north-south streets of the east side of West Hollywood, starting at Fountain and Fairfax, and there's a lot of follow-up that we're going to be doing, but one issue in particular that stuck out were the street lights, several street lights that are out. I know this is not unique to the east side, and that several, in the past couple of weeks, several residents have been emailing us about street lights being out. We need a better response time in getting these street lights up or fixed if they're broken. There are many dark areas on those east side streets, and they contribute to the feeling of lack of safety, as this gentleman shared with us here tonight. So we need a better response time from Southern California Edison. I don't care what it takes. These just need to be fixed and fast. As part of my effort to disclose meetings that I've had regarding prospective cannabis businesses, Good Times Design has contracted with a security representative for a potential cannabis restaurant. That person reached out to talk with me about that. The owner of Essence Cannabis Stores in Las Vegas is actually somebody I went to high school with, and I spoke with when I was in Las Vegas for work last week, and he's considering applying in West Hollywood as well. The owner of Oz Cannabis Store that's already currently located in West Hollywood reached out to me about the point system. Owners of a new local restaurant reached out to me about the application process, and a prospective cannabis restaurant owner, Edgar Kalatian, contacted me about the design and safety plans for his proposed facility. I wanted to announce that the Repeal Costa-Hawkins initiative that is itching to get on the ballot has collected the required number of signatures, and so we will know between...
Excuse me, please stop that.
we will know between June 11th and 24th whether it has actually qualified for the ballot. So for people who are following that initiative process, we're one step closer to getting it on the ballot. A few congratulations to some individuals in the community. I wanted to congratulate Todd Hallman, our East Side Neighborhood Watch captain, who was recently appointed to the Community Justice Panel that was convened by District Attorney Jackie Lacey. I wanted to congratulate West Hollywood Arts Commissioner Martin Gantman on the launch of his new book, which took place here at the Abbey. I want to congratulate Madonna Cacciatore on being hired as the new executive director for CSW LA Pride. She brings much needed and welcomed experience from her work at the LA LGBT Center, and so I know she'll be starting in July, but we're very excited about her joining the board, joining the work with the board there. I want to congratulate the honorees of the Stonewall Democratic Club, including West Hollywood's own Alana Roche. Tonight, Congregation Kol Ami is celebrating their annual gala and the 70th anniversary of Israel, and Alan Bernstein, who previously served on the city's planning commission, is being honored tonight, so I wanted to congratulate him for that. And finally, my disclosures of the meetings I've attended. I represented the city at the Clean Power Alliance regular meeting, California CCA conference, elected officials meetings, the executive committee, and our Leg and Reg committee, the Legislative and Regulatory Committee, which I chair. I represented the city at California Contract Cities membership meeting, their board meetings, and legislative meetings. At the California League for the Los Angeles County Division Board. I also attended the Southern California Association of Governments SCAG annual conference along with Councilmember Meister, and also participated in the WHAM breakfast that happened recently up at Universal to continue our regional engagement about bringing Metro to West Hollywood, which I know we're going to talk about a little bit later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments I'd like to make. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Shahidi for coming out this evening and speaking to the council. We have a lot of regulars that we see every 2 weeks, and every now and then somebody new comes in, and I know for somebody new to come in, it means it's important enough to you that you figured out when the council meets, took a night away from your family, and showed up to speak. So we hear you, and I want to acknowledge hearing that. You asked the rhetorical question, whether or not any of us feel safe in our neighborhoods. I live on the Sunset Strip, so the Sunset Strip is constantly burgeoning with people and traffic and pedestrians, and I will say that I feel pretty safe most of the time because there's so many people around me all the time. However, having said that, the 5 of us every morning get a report on incidents that have occurred the day before in the city. And like any other urban area, there are various misdemeanors and sometimes felonies that occur in West Hollywood like anywhere else. And we can't say that we are 100% crime-free. That wouldn't be true. We can say, however, that statistically crime is down, but we do look for patterns and trends to find out how to deploy our sheriff and our public safety personnel to address particular issues around the community. One of the things I learned early on when I got active with the city was that calling 911, which is what I was taught to do, is not the quickest way to get a sheriff response. Calling 911 goes into a general dispatch where then the 911 operator has to figure out where you are and which police agency is involved and has to patch the call over to that, and minutes can be lost by calling 911. Excuse me, sir. Thank you, sir. Just let me respond. We have a direct line to our sheriff's station, and I want to make our residents aware of that the quickest way to get a sheriff's response is to call the sheriffs directly at 310-855-8850. We've produced magnets for your refrigerator, and we've passed this information out, but it's probably a good time to remind everybody, people present, people watching at home, that the best way to get a hold of our sheriffs is with a direct line. It goes immediately to them. We have a continuing issue with homelessness, and as the other speaker noted, it's not just here in the city of West Hollywood, but countywide. And a lot of the current vandalism that we're seeing and assault and even some occasional crimes of violence are attached to the issue of homelessness. It's a major challenge not only for the city of West Hollywood, but the other 87 cities in the county of Los Angeles. And we're working on it as feverishly as we can. We've dedicated millions of dollars to it, I think more than any other city on a pro rata basis, to do what we can to make sure that those that are homeless, that are criminal in nature, that they're arrested and prosecuted, those who need help, that they're sheltered, those who need mental health services or recovery services are provided access to those services. But it's an ongoing issue, and we're going to be wrapped up in this issue for a very long period of time. The county is only recently starting to release significant amounts of money to the cities, and we intend to apply for that additional funding so we can continue to get on top of it. Having said that, I want to point out that the annual Public Safety Awards are coming up on Monday, the 14th of May. They'll be here in these chambers, and we'll get to hear not only from people who are involved in public safety, but our sheriff's department and our firefighters and all the men and women in our public safety departments that are dedicated to public safety in the city of West Hollywood. It's open to the public. Anyone's welcome to come, and probably the most effective way of addressing all these issues are Neighborhood Watch, where unlike Los Angeles, where they have 4 million people to contend with, we only have 36,000. And many of us know each other, know people in our buildings or on our blocks, and we are the best eyes and ears for one another, whether you live in West Hollywood West or on the East Side or on the Strip or somewhere adjacent to the historic Boys Town area. So I'm not trying to discount what you're saying, Mr. Shahidi, in any way. But we are aware of these issues, and I'm sure our sheriff captain, he's in the back currently, he heard what you said, and he's probably going to take a look into it. Wanted to bring up a couple of other issues. This Wednesday, we are having Patient Zero. Richard McKay wrote a book about Patient Zero, and our former city poet, Steve Rains, is going to conduct a meeting here to hear about Patient Zero. It should be a great discussion on the early beginnings of the HIV epidemic. And then later this week, Andrew Campbell and the Arts and Cultural Affairs Department, they're really active. We're actually going to have a presentation, Adelaide Drive, which is Christopher Isherwood and Don Bacardi, and some of the photographs of their lives together. Of course, Christopher Isherwood capturing a lot of the photographs of Berlin pre-Nazism in the 1920s and 30s and their relationship over those decades. So it should be a really interesting presentation, and that's on Friday. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on is we all got to participate this weekend also with the rededication of the June Mazer archives in the Worley building. For those of you who don't know, when we repurposed the Worley building, not only did we open it up to the West Hollywood Alcohol and Drug Recovery Center, but additionally a permanent home for the One Archives and the June Mazer archives. And it was so wonderful to see so many newspaper clippings and articles and photographs of many of the women I think I've known, John Heilman's known, many of us have known over the years, from Jinx Spears at the Lesbian News, to the late Aslan Brooke and the late Hope Hendricks from Frontiers Magazine, the late Jody Curley, who actually set up most of the social service programs in the city of West Hollywood, the late Gene O'Leary, dear friend of mine who helped start Angle with me, our rabbis, Denise Agar, Lisa Edwards. I mean, the list goes on and on of all of the women, lesbian women in the city of West Hollywood who are often unheralded and seem to be lost in the overshadowing of the nature of the historic Boys Town district. But the reality is that lesbians have been active in cityhood from the very beginning, and certainly in the greater LGBT movement, they have provided leadership, bravery, and courage, especially in the face of AIDS, something that they had absolutely no direct impact on the lesbian community, but the reality is they came to the rescue of so many gay men who were suffering with HIV and AIDS in the early parts of the epidemic. So we are deeply indebted to the lesbian women of the city of West Hollywood and greater Los Angeles for all their contributions over the decades, and I'm so happy that we will permanently maintain and present the history of the lesbian community here in Southern California at the Mazer. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. I wanted to report that I attended the City Selection Committee meeting. This is a meeting of all of the 88 cities in Los Angeles County where we nominate people for various regional and county commissions. The meeting was delayed because we didn't have a quorum for about an hour and a half, but we did get through all of the work this morning. I wanted to thank all of our staff and community for their participation in the Russian Veterans event that we held yesterday. This is a celebration of the victory in Europe. I want to especially thank Tatiana, our special events and Parks and Recreation staff, and our Sheriff's Department for their efforts in making sure that that event went off well. I also wanted to thank the Women's Advisory Board, Larissa, and the Special Events Department. They were very busy yesterday. We had our 12th Annual Women's Leadership Conference that you heard about earlier. I'd like to give some direction to our city attorney. There is new law that went into effect, state law, called the Housing Accountability Act. That act requires the city to do certain things with respect to proposed developments, and I want to make sure that our staff is fully educated, as I suspect they are, about the requirements of that act, and that the council is informed and the Planning Commission as well. So it could just be a consent calendar item that gives us an update on what we're doing to make sure that the City of West Hollywood is completely in compliance with that act. And then finally, I think our sheriff's captain is here tonight, and I would hope that he would follow up directly with Mr. Shahidi. It does seem that based on the circumstances he's reporting, 15 minutes is a very long time to respond to that kind of call with somebody outside your door pounding on the door demanding to get in. So I think we would like to know, why did it take that long, and we'd like you to investigate and follow up directly with Mr. Shahidi if that's possible. And with that, I will turn it over to the city manager for the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Yes, both Captain Aloma and Lieutenant Ramirez are in the back of the room. During the conversation, I want to acknowledge that when you have an incident at your door, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes, it seems like an eternity. According to the records from the Sheriff's Department, there was a response between 9 and 10 minutes where 2 cars did show up at the house and the incident. But again, when you're in that situation, it does feel like an eternity, and we recognize that. They are in the back of the room, and they do want to talk to you about the service and see if there are ways that we can improve it. To expand a little bit upon what Mayor Pro Tem Duran had mentioned is different departments have different systems. The system, the 911 system at the West Hollywood Sheriff Station does stream all the calls at the station. So that, while there are other numbers to call, general office numbers to call, still, just for reference, 911, either from a landline or a mobile phone, is your best option because those calls are best routed. And again, you only call that when there is a life-threatening emergency. So that, just a little bit more information on that. A few notes from the organization. Planning and Development Services is moving forward with a parklet program. We're going to be requesting proposals from the business community and others in the community to look at parklet programs that can be installed throughout the city. You can find information on that on our website. WeHo Pedals is part of the Bike Share Connection program. It now links Beverly Hills, UCLA, and Santa Monica. We now have access to over 800 bicycles at 135 stations, so this is a major enhancement to that program. The city's facility department, we're going to be doing street striping on Beverly Boulevard between San Vicente and Sherborne Drive on May 8th at 9 a.m., so there'll be some traffic there. City Hall lobby project is being installed this week. We've installed tile in the lobby, and the stairs will come in June. We anticipate completing the project at the end of the summer. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will now turn to our first item of business, which is the consent calendar. And are you prepared with a fiscal impact of the consent calendar as it's been amended?
Yes, the fiscal impact with the addition of items 4A and 5A and the removal of item 2R is $1,035,943 in expenditures, $284,785 in potential revenue, and $550 in waived fees.
Thank you very much. The consent calendar is a series of routine items that we approve with a single motion. A motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please push your button. And the consent calendar is now approved. Thank you. We will now turn to our first public hearing, which is item 3A. And Yvonne, you're going to tell us how this public hearing was noticed, I assume, as required by operation of law?
Yes, as required by law.
All right. So our public hearing has been noticed. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers on this item? We do not. All right. Dimitri.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Haney Dimitri, City Engineer. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And this item before you tonight, the City Council will consider approving the solid waste and recyclable material collection and disposal service charges for the upcoming fiscal year 2018-2019. The solid waste collection and recycling services are provided under an exclusive franchise agreement for the entire city. The city contracts with the franchise hauler, Athens Services, for household trash and curbside recycling services. Under this agreement, the rates for all solid waste and recycling services are held at the July 1st, 2014 levels, with only annual CPI increases for the next 5 years. And that's under the franchise agreement. The CPI escalator is capped at 6%, and if the inflation is negative, there will be no CPI increase for that particular year. For 2018-2019, the rates are being increased by the CPI of just 2.13%. This means if you are a property owner in a 1 to 2 4-unit property, basically you're going to see just $4.70 increase for the entire year. This amounts to just 40 cents a month. If you're in a multi-unit of 5 or more, your rate will go up by just 72 cents annually, for this year coming up. And this comes down to 6 cents a month. So with that, staff is asking the council to make a finding that there is no majority protest by property owners within the assessment area. We are also asking the council to approve the resolution of the City Council of the City of West Hollywood adopting the Consumer Price Index for all urban customers in the amount of 2.13%, as we stated earlier. And last but not least is adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of West Hollywood confirming the levying of an annual assessment for solid waste and recycling services for the fiscal year of 2018-2019 pursuant to Title 15, Chapter 15.48 of the Municipal Code. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Motion to close the public hearing and move the item as presented.
One question. We did get a letter from somebody complaining about service. I presume you'll follow up with that individual.
As we always do.
Okay, great. So there's a motion to close the public hearing and to approve the recommendations that have been submitted. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, push your button. And it carries unanimously. Thank you. 4A was moved to consent, as was 5A as well. And that brings us to 5B, Commission and Advisory Board appointments. Councilmember Horvath, do you have your appointment ready?
Yes, I want to thank Maggie Buckles for her years of service, not only on the Rent Stabilization Commission, but previous to that, on the Public Facilities Commission. She was fortunate enough to purchase her own new home. She just happened to purchase it outside of our boundary. And so we congratulate her on her success and wish her well. And I'm excited to share and invite Karen O'Keefe to join the Rent Stabilization Commission and continue her service to our community there. I'm sure you've seen her at community events and a lot of the different work that she's done with the Bicycle Coalition and other activities. So congratulations, Karen.
And I don't believe she's here tonight, but congratulations, Karen. All right, and I have my appointee to the Transgender Advisory Board, and I'm going to appoint Madison Fairchild. And I don't believe Madison is here either. Madison is my former student and has gone on to a career where she's working extensively on the issues of the transgender community. So I think she'll be a good addition to the board. All right, so that completes item 5B, and now we go to excluded consent calendar items, and I think the only one is item 2R, and staff is moving forward here. We have lots of staff. And we have a consultant as well. We do have a couple of speakers. Do we want to just turn to questions, or do you want to hear from the speakers first?
Maybe a staff report?
Okay.
Brief staff report?
Brief staff report, and then we'll have the speakers, and then council questions.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, council members. My name is Joanna Hankhammer. I'm Principal Planner in Capital and Special Projects. So item 2R is regarding a resolution and other timely actions that the City Council can consider and take to accelerate the northern extension of the Crenshaw LAX light rail line. The item is time sensitive due to upcoming milestones at Metro. As Metro finalizes its fiscal year 19 budget this month and proposes project next steps to the board in June or July, City Council members, staff, and our consultants are working to ensure that Metro includes adequate funding and timely direction for the northern extension of the Crenshaw Line light rail project. The next critical step is a full project environmental impact report, which is necessary to compete for state, federal, and/or private funding necessary to accelerate the project timeline. As the city works proactively to keep the project's technical studies moving, Metro staff and CEO Phil Washington have often told us that we're doing everything right to accelerate this line, including holding Metro to the commitment that its CEO made to the city in 2016 to have the project shovel-ready by 2020. Partly in response to the city's request for a pathway to accelerate Measure M projects, in March, Metro adopted the Measure M Early Project Delivery Strategy. This tool allows jurisdictions to demonstrate readiness and partnership commitments for projects that Metro has scheduled for the outer years. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution that directly responds to Metro's early project delivery strategy, the details of which are in your staff report. If the city approves the resolution and actions before you tonight, the city will be the first among all 88 cities in Los Angeles County to employ Metro's acceleration tool, and will serve as an example of how local jurisdictions and Metro can work together to accelerate the build-out of Measure M transportation projects that voters voted for in November 2016. This concludes my report. John Kehoe, David Finn, John Leonard, and I are here to answer questions, as well as Norm Emerson.
Thank you very much for all your work on this. We do have two public speakers here. Oh, yes, ask your questions now.
Thank you. So my first question is, you have about the environmental impact, environmental review that you want an expedited process, right? For the environmental review, that's one of the things that you're asking for in this resolution, for us to support.
Yes.
Right? So I think it says not to exceed 3 years. What would it normally be?
A normal EIR would take 2 to 3 years. I think the importance is that the city work to respond effectively and efficiently to keep the review going.
Okay, and then regarding the costs, if we went on the timeline that's not accelerated, we're looking at the 3% match, is that right?
Correct.
So, and that's 42 to 66 million, depending on what, which route they is picked, right?
Correct.
And so if we didn't do the acceleration, all right, so if we did the acceleration, we're looking at an additional $70 to $550 million, is that right? That's what's in the report.
There is a range, yes, between 70 and 500 million. We're also looking at a reduction of the project cost overall because of the accelerated timeline and the cost of future money versus the cost of near-term money.
But who would be responsible for that if we didn't accelerate? Would we still be responsible for 70 to 550 million?
No, we would still be responsible if we waited for the timeline and if the project found additional funding, because currently the Measure M doesn't have enough to fund the entire project. So there will be more money that is needed from, state, federal, other monies. If we do nothing to accelerate it, then we still have a contribution of 3% local.
Which is the 42 to 66
Which is the
million.
required, it's required, yes. The 3% is required.
Okay, so we're looking at 42 to 66 million for the 3% match, and then additional 70 to 550 million if we were to do the acceleration.
Correct, but that isn't necessarily all money from the city. That is potential to find other partners, private investors, so the intent is to bring that much money to the project.
Right, but you mentioned local sales tax, bonds, private investment, value capture tools,
Yes.
additional state or federal funds. Okay.
We have two speakers. The first is Kevin Burton. I didn't see you, but I saw your hat there. And Dan Wenzel as well.
Good evening, council members. I'm Kevin Burton. I'm a resident of the city of West Hollywood. I also have the honor of serving on the city's Transportation Commission. But I'm speaking for myself this evening on this transportation-related item. I just want to say that I strongly support the city's continued diligence in working with Metro to extend the Crenshaw line north from Exposition Boulevard through West Hollywood and on up to Hollywood and Highland Red Line Station. And it's, I think, very important to continue engaging with Metro and, as the resolution states, to cooperate and collaborate with our large neighboring city to present a unified front to Metro that we are actively working together to be prepared as soon as possible to have a shovel-ready project in hand. And I make these comments as someone who frequently uses public transit. In fact, I attended a meeting in Universal City just last week, took the red line from Hollywood to Universal City, 4 minutes. Try and do that through the Cahuenga Pass in a car. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Dan Wenzel, and that's our last speaker.
Thank you, City Council. I am privileged to be here. I am the current chair of West Hollywood's Transportation Commission, but I'm speaking for myself as a resident and a longtime public transit advocate. I completely support this resolution, and I'd like to point out just a couple of things in the staff report. The idea of being the first city to do this, I think, would carry a lot of weight with Metro. One of the things that Metro has always liked about us is that we were the largest vote getter together for Measures M and Measures R and Measures J. And I think being the first city would be something that would be very appealing. I also, about the resolution itself, it demonstrates local agency level progress for each local level criterion. So the resolution itself is very well written. Also, it has no immediate fiscal impact, which means we have nothing to lose but our immobility. I also think that having a one-seat ride from West Hollywood to LAX would be so generative of economic activity. The benefit would be amazing, and I think we would find partners and financial partners so that we would not be the only ones contributing. And I just want to thank Councilmember Horvath and Mayor Heilman for bringing this resolution forward, and for all of you've done to help move this northern extension forward, because I do believe it is not only it's the most likely and realistic project for bringing Metro Rail to West Hollywood in all of our lifetimes, and I believe it will happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck on the AIDS ride if we don't see you before then. All right, that completes our public speakers on this item. Any council discussion?
I'll move the item.
Councilmember, yeah.
I'll speak since I'm apparently in the minority. So I have some concerns about this item, and firstly, it's the uncertainty of the alignment. The fact that we're going in on this and saying we're going to spend all this money and we're going to sign an MOU for streamlined planning and environmental process when we don't know what the alignment will be. I think that uncertainty for me is just I can't support that. Also, the costs of this and the fact that we would be using the local returns, when those local returns could be used for the City Line X, they could be used for the shuttle, they could be used for the pickup, they could be used for the new Sunset shuttle, and an expansion of the City Line X routes to the Purple Line when it's finished, and down to Jefferson and LAX. I just think that our residents really love that City Line, and it's been a great service, and being able to use those local returns for that, I think, is just a better use of that money. I have real concerns with a $550 million price tag for this. I think that the voters, when they voted for this, thought that the sales tax was going to cover it, and that it wouldn't wouldn't become a debt for us. And that's what a bond is. It's a debt. And then lastly, I know that in the staff report, there's a comment about the internal polling, and I assume that has to do with the local tax initiative, potential local tax initiative poll that we did back in 2016, the end of 2016. And really what we found there was that out of 20 items asking importance, this was actually number 10. It wasn't in the top 3, it wasn't in the top 5, it was just at the 10th item in terms of importance. And before that was expanding city efforts to address homelessness, repairing potholes, ensuring safe and clean public areas, maintaining essential city services, upgrading pedestrian crosswalk safety throughout the city, increasing affordable housing, assisting in earthquake retrofitting aging buildings in West Hollywood, increasing sheriff's patrols, improving pedestrian and bike safety. And then we have providing matching funds to attempt to accelerate the extension of the light rail line through West Hollywood and linking up to Hollywood and Highland Metro Red Line Station. And just to put it in context, we're talking about a combined importance of 75% to address homelessness versus 55% or 56% on matching funds. So I don't think that this is really what our constituents bargained for when they voted for this. I think, yes, we'd all like to see it accelerated, but I think at some point we have to say, okay, we need to have just a point where we say, okay, we've done a lot, we've done enough, we've put $1.2 million already into this effort just since 2015, and personally, I just don't feel good about voting for this, but thank you for bringing it forward.
Councilmember Horvath.
Thank you, Mayor. I really want to thank staff for bringing this item forward. I think it's indicative of not only who we want to be as a city in terms of being transit-friendly and innovative and the first in answering the call of Measure M to do exactly what needs to be done in order to get to bring rail to our community. But it's also exactly why our Metro CEO was chosen to lead Metro, because he has been a partner in bringing private dollars to these public projects to help with acceleration, and Metro is always looking to us to do our part. And as Joanna reported, they consistently comment on the ways that we've done all that we can and are continuing to do all that we can to make this effort turn into a reality. So I very much support it. I think I spoke with Supervisor Kuehl earlier today to check in with her about the progress of this effort, and actually specifically asked her about this item on our agenda tonight. And she said she has not one reservation about anything that's in this report. She even restated her commitment to our efforts to keeping going with the alternatives analysis and the environmental studies. And I do have a meeting with Phil Washington later this week to have that conversation with him as well. I'll continue to do so with the board members. With regards to the study that was referenced, I don't think City Line is in jeopardy, and for anyone who's responding that repairing potholes is in their top 5 concerns, I think maybe they're just responding to sort of a knee-jerk hearing the word potholes, because our potholes are fixed in less than 48 hours in West Hollywood. So, you know, in my experience in West Hollywood, people have overwhelmingly supported the measures that have been before us to bring rail, to spend our dollars, to tax ourselves to make this effort happen. Traffic and parking have always been among the top issues that we've talked about here in the city, and this is a big response to how we can address those issues in an important and measurable way. And so for all of those reasons, I'm excited to support this item and see this effort continue to move forward. And I think everyone in the community who has been a part of it, we will bring rail to this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Duran, or Mayor Pro Tem Duran. I still have
Get
the
used,
gavel.
get used to it. Thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering if my colleagues would allow me to either give direction to the city manager or add a 6th recommendation. I think this would be a good time for us to start to look at the taxing of marijuana as another financing mechanism. I know that we talked about in budgets past putting aside some money to do a study and survey and polling on taxing marijuana here in the city of West Hollywood. We would have to put it on the next municipal election, which is coming up in March. We probably need a few months of lead time to get that work started, and this would seem to be a great use of that additional tax money to help support our work on the northern extension of the Metro line. So I don't know if my colleagues will allow me to add that as a 6th recommendation, or just not object to me asking the city manager to initiate what I think is already in our budget.
We are anticipating doing that work in the next budget. We do have funding set aside for that. So to advance and combine the studies would make perfect sense, and we can coordinate those efforts.
Can we do that without objection, maybe? From
Yeah,
my colleagues?
I don't. It sounds like we're already doing that, but if you want to formally give that as direction to continue doing what we're already doing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't hear any objection. City Manager, did you? Your button is pushed. Okay. I want to just say one thing before we close. The concern that was expressed about the public and what the public thought they were voting for, I think the public was very clear. They voted, I believe, about 85% in West Hollywood, the highest percentage in the county, in support of Metro. And I think the public understood that we were supporting it as a council because we wanted to bring service to West Hollywood. And so I'm sure that the public didn't feel that that was the end of the discussion, that there weren't going to be other funds that might have to be generated to support bringing Metro to West Hollywood. So I don't agree that, you know, your concerns about the public support. The second concern that has been raised with respect to money, I think, is a very legitimate concern, and I think we have to be very mindful about how much are we as a community willing to put in. But regardless of whether this is expedited or whether we wait until, what is it, 2040 something, 2041, it's likely at that time that we're going to be asked to contribute not just the 3%, but there's not going to be sufficient funding at that time to complete the project. So we're going to be doing a public-private partnership or looking at alternative ways for us to generate additional money beyond the 3%. I also think that in terms of what we're being asked to do, you've raised the sort of horror story that we have to come up with $500 million, and that is not accurate. What we're looking at is a public-private partnership. And there are a lot of entities that I think would be very interested in having a public-private partnership because the ridership on this line would be so high. And part of the public-private partnership could easily be one where an additional amount is charged to the people using for a period of time until the expense of building the line is recouped. And that's how it's been done, almost like a toll road in other communities. So that's certainly something where it's not coming out of our money, it's not necessarily an additional tax on our residents. But at this point, we're not asking for any specific source of funds. We're asking to do the study and the investigation and to hire the people who will help us formulate the funding for this. And then I guess the last concern that you raised is the alignment. And obviously that's a concern, but unfortunately the way this process works, if we're going to expedite, we have to expedite without the alignment being known definitively. What we're trying to expedite is the process of determining the alignment. And that's something that if we're really talking about trying to move this up in the timeline, it has to really occur simultaneously with the investigation of the different funding sources. So I just will close by, again, thanking Joanna and our staff and our consultant. We have really come a long way in terms of moving this forward on the Metro's agenda. I just saw Board Member Fasana today, and he was very interested in this resolution and what we're doing. He's very excited that West Hollywood is really taking a leadership role, and he hopes that other cities will join us. Mayor Butts from Inglewood is also really excited about us trying to move this forward. He thinks that this is a critical missing link in the system. So I know I was going to be brief, but I wasn't. Sorry. All right. Are we any further discussion? We ready to vote? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All right, it carried 3-1. Thank you, everyone. And then I think the only other item we have is a legislative item, item 6A, which was designed to correct some language in our rent stabilization ordinance. Mike, are you giving the report, or Peter, or the two of you combined?
Peter is going to give a brief report, and I'm going to hand out some alternative language that Councilmember Meister would like, and when the time comes, I'm just going to walk you all through it.
Great. Good evening. Pete Noonan, Acting Human Services and Rent Stabilization Director. In 2016, the City Council adopted an amendment to the Rent Stabilization Ordinance, applying the full Rent Stabilization Ordinance to new rental units built and rented within 5 years of prior rent-stabilized units being removed from the rental market using the Ellis Act and demolished. The 2016 ordinance applied to all apartment buildings in the development pipeline, including projects that had been approved, received building permits, and had already begun construction. The draft ordinance before the City Council this evening would exempt those 2 projects that had been approved prior to the effective date of the 2016 ordinance. Additionally, the draft ordinance before you clarifies that affordable housing units produced through the inclusionary program and produced by nonprofit housing providers are exempt from this requirement. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Mike?
So if you'll just take a look at attachment A to the staff report, which is the ordinance, and that's, I think, pretty much the last page in your agenda packet. And I just want to compare it against the sheet that I just handed out. And so if you look at the attachment A, I'm going to read the new language that Councilmember Meister would prefer. And if you follow along, you'll see, I'll point out the differences. So starting with paragraph I, if the new accommodations are located on a property where the accommodations were demolished after having been withdrawn from the rental market under section 1752-010-15 and are offered for rent or lease within 5 years of the date of withdrawal, the new accommodations shall not be exempt from this title. And that's where, in the new language, we put a period rather than a comma. And so then we have a new sentence that says, this title shall apply to all rental units constructed on the formerly withdrawn property, regardless of the number of rental units withdrawn. And that language changes the language in the one in your packet from where it said, regardless whether they exceed the number of units withdrawn. I don't regard that as a substantive change, it's just a language change. And then it goes on, except under the following circumstances. So we have a new sentence instead of a run-on sentence. The first bullet point, in the one in your packet, it said, new accommodations that would otherwise be exempt under this title shall be exempt. The new language actually spells out what those accommodations are, namely, what are the accommodations that are otherwise exempt under the title? Inclusionary housing units, nonprofit housing accommodations, institutional facilities, and government-assisted or owned housing. So it just spells out what's provided in the code as being exempt. The second bullet point is exactly the same. And then a question came up, Peter, as to whether that July should be July or June. Maybe you can comment on that, because Councilmember Meister thought maybe it should be June.
We approved the ordinance in June, so is it 30 days for it to be effective, or?
Correct. Yeah, ordinances are 30 days, they're effective 30 days after approval.
Okay,
But
thank you.
either, it doesn't really matter to me from a legal perspective, so long as the date grandfathers those, in other words, the projects you are talking about grandfathering are covered regardless of which date.
They would be covered regardless of either date.
Okay, great.
Can I ask a question about this? And maybe I'm just naive about this, but new condos would be exempt as well, correct?
New condos would be exempt unless the condo building, the building with a condo map, was rented as an entire building.
Okay, so, but we haven't included this under, or is that considered in the list of inclusionary housing units, nonprofit, institutional facilities, and government-assisted or owned housing, otherwise under exempt? Shouldn't we include condos as well in that list?
Well, condos are not rental units.
But they can be if the individual owner rents it out.
And if they are, then they're not exempt. Right.
If the individual condo is rented. So as I understand it, the application of this new law would be that if a developer constructs a condo building and rents the units in the entire building,
right,
as a rental project, then the building would be rent stabilized.
Correct.
As
But
soon
what
as
if
the
it's
first-
sold as condos and one of the owners rents their unit out?
It is exempt. So at that point, it's condoized under the map, and it's being operated as a condo building with an HOA and with individual owners of the units. It is then exempt.
Right, so I see your point. I mean, you are correct. Under those circumstances, you're suggesting that we are creating some confusion because it's not included in the list of exemptions in the first bullet. Condo units that are purchased by and owned by an individual who then rents it out, basically.
Or maybe in this first bullet point, we just need an additional clause that says, and any other unit that is otherwise exempt.
I mean, that would certainly work for me. Is that? And so we would just add after government-assisted or owned housing, and any other unit otherwise exempt under this title.
Yes. Okay. With that change incorporated into the ordinance, can we then go ahead and introduce this? Oh, Councilmember Horvath, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question about, are rehab facilities considered institutional facilities?
I think that some are. I'm not certain that all are considered.
Okay, so I just want to throw out there any rentals. I know we have at least one drug rehab facility that rents out their housing, and so I just wanted to know how we would characterize that kind of housing as it relates to this language, if it's not included in institutional facilities. Is that considered housing?
But this only applies to newly constructed units, so the existing facility wouldn't be affected by this ordinance.
Right, and it only applies in the post-Ellis environment where the units are withdrawn and then brought back within 5 years. The issue you raised is an interesting issue, but I don't believe it's implicated by this ordinance, but it is one that I'm aware of.
Just wanted to
Right.
make sure we're clarifying that.
All right, are we ready to vote on this? Yvonne, do you have the changes that have been made? Okay, so we got an amendment tonight, or we had a substitute language tonight, and we amended that, and that would be the ordinance that we would be introducing on first reading. Is there a motion?
Yes.
Oh, it's been moved and seconded. Other discussion? All those in favor, please go ahead and vote. And it carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I neglected something earlier, and no one is here, unfortunately, to hear this wonderful news. The City of West Hollywood took home an award from the statewide organization, the California Association of Public Information Officials. We won the first place award. Their EPIC award was in the category of Marketing and Communications Campaign for our Social Media Connect campaign, which engages community members in social media. Congratulations to our communications department for this wonderful statewide recognition. Any further council comments? Any additional public comments?
Yes, we have one additional public comment.
Okay, one additional public comment. Rich Cohen. Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you. City Council, my name is Rich Cohen. Glad to be here. You're doing a great job. So, I'd like to talk about West Hollywood Elementary School, LAUSD. I've been in contact with Lauren here, who's been very helpful on a number of issues, including my lawsuit against the City of Beverly Hills for that water tax that I initiated in January, and for helping out with the city the crosswalk on Elevado. I want to talk, there's a groundswell, and I know there's been discussion in the past about where these kids are matriculating to. These kids are not matriculating to any school in West Hollywood. And the schools that they are forced to matriculate to in the LAUSD system are not the same quality of school that the West Hollywood Elementary is. And there is a lot of discussion. We were talking to LUSD, even looking at the Beverly Hills model of what they've done, which has got its pros and cons. But what I'm looking to do is to create a study about either building up West Hollywood Elementary to go K through 8, or to find a property that we can have a middle school and a high school that these kids can matriculate, because this is the city of the future. You eloquently said 2041. I'm thinking we're doing so much and we're raising so much money in this community, and we're such a diverse community, and I love living here, but the one thing that we lack is from the beginning is having an education system that the world can be proud of. West Hollywood should be that beacon across the board. It should allow these kids, and I know that whatever I'm going to do won't take effect for some time, but it should start. We should be looking at education for these kids, whether it's through a bond or building something ourselves. And I hope that we can create a study, a committee, because the parents, I think, would like that. I think it'd be good for this city as we grow into the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's our last public speaker. We are adjourned.
Go Cavs.
If you didn't understand that reference, we're both from Cleveland, so we're rooting on the Cleveland Cavaliers.